Was it good?
It's I think mesmerising. It's very much hop, skip, and a jump.
Oh, I'm excited now. I want to see this.
So yeah, that's state of plays. There is no play.
There is no play. Where's Tony? He's supposed to be on.
He said he can't get his camera to work or something.
No. Says I'll just restart it. Someone WhatsApp and restart Zoom.
Turn it off and turn it on again.
Yeah,
Would be
exactly.
my suggestion. It normally works with these sort of things.
Absolutely.
So this is all a bit annoying for England.
It's all a bit.
There's so much time left in the game that.
Yeah, but I don't want to come in on Monday, Rob, because I'm here for every day.
That's a good point.
We've got to think of the bear during this test match.
That's a good point.
Is Knackle back for the second one?
Yeah, he is. He just can't do this weekend, basically. So, I mean, that means I only get to do day one of the next one and then followed by 2 days where I'm off immediately. I mean, I'm fine once I get in here. It's just waking up and just thinking I've not had enough sleep, and then I get here and I'm kind of okay. As long as I don't actually eat too much, because as soon as you eat, you get tired again.
Well, I made the mistake last night of thinking, it's 9:30. I can watch a bit of telly. I'll be all right. And I started to watch NCIS for some reason. And about 3 episodes in, I've looked at the clock and it's like 11, and I'm like, oh shit, I've got to go to bed.
Well, luckily the Arsenal match last night was so poor that it put you in the right frame of mind to.
I was watching it on Arseblog Live, which doesn't show you the game itself. It's just a sort of minute by minute update. It didn't seem very good. Are you a Newcastle fan or not a Newcastle fan? You're an Arsenal fan, Rob?
No, Leicester.
Leicester.
The Mighty Foxes.
They're doing well again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple of big games coming up though.
Who they got?
They got Southampton tomorrow, who are up there, and then Chelsea in the week. So
Chelsea are a bit Jekyll and Hyde, though, aren't they?
Yeah, I actually had someone tweeted me earlier to say that on Sri Lanka's performance that they reckoned even Leicestershire would give Sri Lanka a decent game, which is a fair point considering Leicestershire's record in 4-day cricket recently.
Mohammed Abbas, decent bowler.
Oh, very much so. Unfortunately, not a lot else. And he's now been called up so much for internationals.
Re-signed Stuart Broad.
Once he's retired.
Well, unretire him and get him back to Leicestershire.
Yeah. Well, if he'd have one season and then go back to Notts, that's what happens for Leicestershire. You get a good season out of a player, and then he goes up the road. Unfortunately.
Just out of interest, are we live, Bear?
We are live, Tony.
Oh, marvellous. So we should probably talk some cricket rather than...
Wow.
We don't have to.
Arsenal.
It's guerrilla cricket, Tony. Haven't you got it yet?
It's not guerrilla Leicester City, is it?
Well, no, it is.
As long as we don't say anything contentious, you know.
That's true. That is true.
There's nothing going on,
because I wouldn't let my camera but I realised whilst I was off air, I'd had a Google meeting, which I'd left kind of on in the background, so my computer was all confused about.
Yeah,
that's why you couldn't see me. I could hear you, but I couldn't fire up my camera. But then I realised what I needed to do.
There's too many of these now. Zoom, Google Hangouts.
Oddly, it was back to Singapore again. Only it wasn't with an Indo this time. It was one of my old colleagues. Shame about Lawrence.
Yep.
Great shame about Lawrence. But how would you feel if you were him? Would you be feeling 78? You know what? That's not at all a bad first innings. Or
no.
I was well on my way to 3 figures there on my first international game, first Test match. I really probably should have got that.
Professional sportsman will not be happy with it.
Yeah, I think he'd be pleased to have made a score, but I think he knows he's left a ton out there. I think.
Yeah, and there'll be people around him going, "Well done, well played. Don't think bad of yourself," and he's thinking to himself, "You tit."
Yeah, I didn't actually see the dismissal, so can somebody talk me through it?
Caught bat pad.
Oh yeah, forward short leg.
Yeah.
Good ball, or could he have got on top of it?
It bounced a bit more than some of the other ones. It was sort of top of the bat glove style. No, I think it was a decent ball, to be fair.
Well, there you go. You do. I mean, what are we? We're only day 2, aren't we? Day 2. It was been turning since day 1. As I say, when I was on commentary earlier, I remembered the ball from Leach fairly early on. Absolutely ripped yesterday. So you've got to think, as days 3, 4, and 5 come on, I'm increasingly not expecting to see days 4 or 5.
I do. Think
unless Sri Lanka can learn the lessons of their first innings, because there were probably half the wickets that went, you'd have to argue were avoidable, possibly more. Just poor shot selection, wrong shot, wrong time. They seemed sort of careless somehow in just their whole execution, which was disappointing, I think, in a way.
It was all a bit frenetic, wasn't it?
If I'd have been their mum or dad at eating it, it would have been like, you can do better than that. I'm disappointed in you.
I wonder what Mickey Arthur said to him.
Well,
I mean, surely the highlight of this Test match so far, I think, is Mickey Arthur.
Well, his team talk, I would imagine, would be something along the lines of, "If you don't pull your socks up, I'm going to get the other one out."
Well, I want more Mickey Arthur in the for the rest of this series.
Well, you and quite a lot of our fans and followers, I've seen a lot of discussion about.
By that, I don't mean I want to see more of his body. I want to see more of him, his antics.
Oh, him getting out. I thought you were talking about his tight-fitting shorts.
That's part of it.
Barely containing whatever lurks within. I must say. Do you think Sri Lanka has a PR, a person who's gone and had a quiet word in his ear that says, a bit like, when in the 19th century or the 18th century when ladies used to learn deportment. About exactly how does one sit, Mickey, when one is in full view of a camera, and arguably not man spreading in a tight pair of shorts.
Yeah, probably not. It may be de rigueur out there. We don't know.
I think that's highly unlikely.
Would you like some tweets? While
I was going to say, we got
some
tweets.
Well, obviously, I missed it because I was sort of sleeping a little bit. Forong says, just remember Hendo is the almighty, don't upset him, as people have been upsetting Hendo. I can live with Hendo calling Josh Buttlord, and I think Annie Chave wouldn't be very offended either. I mean, it's a fine butt. No comparison with Nigides, obviously, but Lungi's a fast bowler after all. Well, yeah, that's true. Mog says, it's not only raining here, but there's added hail for fun. Melbourne's summer.
Wow.
Leia, of my NCIS watching, says, you watch 3 episodes of NCIS straight. Respect. I can get through 5 minutes can't get through 5 minutes without falling asleep. And Farong says, on the football front, Bish knows my mob.
Oh, absolutely. He's a cherries man.
Brooks to West Spam, 40 million. Should we accept the offer? We would need them to sign Broken Jack to replace him.
I think the answer to that, Farong, is please do, because then they might lose interest in Ismail Assar, which I think they're also sniffing around.
Warren says Mickey Arthur has gone balls to the wall.
Well, if they were to the wall, we wouldn't have to look at them. Unfortunately, they're not to the wall. That's been part of the problem.
Depends which wall, though.
Well, yes.
On YouTube, I don't know if you've read these out. We've got Dara Azizi. Butler can't play spin. Jamie Wilson says, I'll have you, Butler. He also says Norfolk and puts a green and yellow flag up and a black flag. Gregory Beasley says, good morning from Porthcawl. And
good morning.
Govind Girl says, thank.
I think that means thank you.
No, she says thank. I'm reading it as it's written.
Fair enough.
He says thank. So I am thank.
Yeah.
Might mean something else. I don't know.
There is some cricket going on which I can update you on.
Big Bash, maybe?
In the Big Bash.
Oh, yeah. God, I've forgotten about that.
The Stars made 179 for 2 in their 20 overs. Andre Fletcher carried his bat, if you can, in T20 for 89 from 49 balls. There was the innings I mentioned earlier of Marcus Stoinis, who got 13 from 29 opening the batting. And the strikers are rather struggling in reply. They're 49 for 3 after 10 overs, so they need 131 from the last 10 to win that game.
13 and over, isn't it? That's going to take some doing.
And Alex Carey is already out.
I think Dizzy might be disappointed in the final results there.
Yes.
Does Stoinis not get a look in on the test front at all?
Doesn't seem like it, no.
I find that slightly surprising. I know he's very, very good, sort of the shorter ball format, but he's a good cricketer, isn't he?
On the test front's interesting as well. I mean, honours even, do we think? Those possibly Australia slightly ahead, given the injury issues that India are facing. But 274 for 5, and I think Smith and Labuschagne both out. Would I be right in saying
that? Yes, that is. Labuschagne was 108, and he
made his ton. It would have been only 20-something, wouldn't it? What was he on when he was dropped by Ajinkya Rahane?
I'm not sure. I think losing the bowler India did, Saini. Deep Saini only bowled 7 overs and 5 balls. And
curiously, literally as that catch was dropped, the catch went down, and almost simultaneously Saini hit the floor with something. Then he went off, didn't he? And it was clearly it looked like a thigh stroke, top of thigh approaching groin issue. But then he came back, but it was only on for. He clearly realised that coming back wasn't going to work, and went off again.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tough for India if they're a bowler down and their resources are already stretched to the limit anyway.
Brisbane is also not the venue you want to lose a fast bowler either.
No, it absolutely isn't. And quite a partnership starting to form between Tim Payne and Cameron Green.
Tim Payne's redemption century is on the cards.
Well, he's a long way from it, 38 off 62. But yeah, let's get him to a half century first.
Oh, I'm trying to talk him out here, even though they don't start again for another 12 hours.
And did India take the new ball? Because they will have a new ball tomorrow morning if they took the new ball tonight after 87 overs, but I don't know if they ended up taking it.
No, I don't know. That's not on my...
Maybe if they're a fast bowler down, and I haven't... Let's look in the notes there, or someone perhaps could tell us. There would have been a school of thought that said if we're a fast bowler down and we think potentially we might have him back in the morning, I wonder if we'll save the new ball to the morning. New ball taken at 81.1 overs, so they went 1 over the allocation, so they did take the new ball. Nestlers?
Oh, Nestlers
signalling.
I've got a cat.
Oh yes, the cat.
The funny thing was, she was just on the windowsill, out the window, just talking to pigeons. She does this. She sits there and just sort of like mumbles away at them.
Well, I must try and get a picture at some point, because mine, when I take a little bit of old ham or chicken or something and pop it on the garden table for the magpie, the cat will sit there on the table, and occasionally the magpie will come up to my doors, glass doors, and the cat will sit the other side, and they'll just look at each other. Whether they're having some sort of conversation, I don't know, but they will stare at each other through the glass.
Moggy actually sort of just sits there going I don't know what she's saying.
A musical.
It's it's quite well. She talks to me all the time in the morning when it's breakfast time. God blimey, you should hear her. It's like having a go at me for being late or something. It really is quite a thing. And every time she comes in the room, she kind of like complains. It sounds like she's complaining about something. She's a woman. Oh,
let's move you off that particular avenue of discussion.
Oh, for God's sake.
Before you dig the most enormous hole that we'll never be able to haul you back out of.
Certainly generates some tweets, though.
Yeah,
well, yeah, very true. Very, very true. So seriously, how long do we think this is going to go, Rob? What do you reckon?
Well, the latest update from Gorilla, that's us, Crick Info, said it was a sharp shower, forcing the ground staff to not just cover the pitch, but bring on bigger covers as well. It's still raining, and tyres are being brought on to prevent the covers from blowing away.
That sounds interesting. Nobody has taken up me and Ed Benson's invention of having, those domes that you put over tennis courts.
I thought you were going to say weed farms, but yeah, I know what you mean.
No. Giant domes that you can automatically inflate and just cover the whole ground so that you don't get anywhere at all. And then you just, once it literally stops raining, you just press a button, down it comes, and you go out and play.
Yeah, they've got a similar system in rugby where all the clubs seem to have a sort of dome there, but that's to prevent frozen pitches. I don't know if I presume it's a similar thing to work for the rain.
That covers the whole rugby pitch.
Yeah.
So you can do it for cricket then.
If you look at the Millennium Stadium, have you been in the Millennium Stadium when the roof's on?
Yes.
Yeah. Extraordinary. I mean,
the
weird thing is, you literally, even if as it was in my particular instance, it was a football crowd, but you can't even hear what you're chanting because it just kind of echoes and reverberates. So all you have is a kind of a wall of noise, and you hope your chant is sort of vaguely in tune. It's a weird experience.
What me and Ed were proposing though is to have it, just on where the boundary sponge is these days, like have it all round. Obviously, they're mostly oval, and it just automatically comes over. Because obviously you can't put a roof on Lords or anything, can you? Like the Millennium Stadium. But no one's taken us up on it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of you'd think something that simply just if you ran and just something that rolled out, that you literally brought the whole thing out in one go and covered the whole pitch area. Or
we're
beyond
talking
the wit of man.
We're talking about an automatic dome, like a proper dome, that covers tennis courts. That used to, before you had indoor courts, the great thing was they've got a dome, so you could go down and play tennis inside their dome.
A pleasure dome.
Well, if you want to call it that. I mean, depends how much you like tennis.
Lacan. A stately pleasure dome. You're decreeing a stately pleasure dome, Nestus. I think that's a very sound idea.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood, wasn't it?
Well, I think you'll find it was actually originally The Legend of Kubla Khan. But yes, it was. It was Frankie Goes to Hollywood as well. Yeah.
I always go for the popular culture reference rather than the classical reference. That's all I know.
The bizarre thing about going to the Millennium Stadium, that you said, is that when you're actually in there, and if you're watching a game under the roof, it feels like it's the middle of the night, or a night game. So then when you stagger out, come out after the game and it's blazing sunshine or whatever, it's quite because if Wales, if they can, will play rugby under the roof regardless whether the weather is bad or not.
Is that because of the atmosphere in their favour? Yeah, I can see it's intimidating.
Although the Six Nations changed the rules for their matches that the opposition have to agree. So England never agree, and it always annoys the Welsh. Even if England played in the rain with the roof open, which didn't go down very well. But no, it's definitely a unique experience. I never actually saw any football there because we never got to a final when they were in Cardiff. Yeah. But I've been there plenty of times for rugby. It's very unique. You're right about the sort of wall of noise.
Yeah, it is. What for both of you is an interesting question. Any sport, anywhere around the world, which stadium has most impressed you that you've been to, and which one have you not been to that you would love to have been to?
Impressed as in, oh my god, this is huge, or loved it?
Either.
I very much enjoyed the Stade de France in Paris when I went there. I saw England against France there in the Six Nations. That would be up there.
Are you talking about a one stadium thing, or can I also go for Paris, but go for Roland Garros?
Yeah,
because it's a
sporting venue. Then it's a sporting venue.
The most impressive one, I think, has to be the Indianapolis Raceway.
That's the one where they just drive around in circles, though, don't they?
No, there's
very large ones.
No. They've held Formula One races there, and they have an IndyCar race there.
Yeah.
No, you're talking about the oval rate track there. Yeah, I mean it's the Brickyard, and I went to the Brickyard 500. 500,000 people in the stadium. It is something else, and the noise obviously from the cars and the speed they go at, which is also mind blowing. That was pretty incredible. Just as a spectacle. I'm trying to think of something else. Well, actually, the Carter Finley Stadium in North Carolina to watch college football. I mean, that was 60,000. I had no idea that it was so popular.
Oh no, I've been to college football in the States.
It's nuts.
It's unbelievable.
The MCG is quite special, just on its pure scale.
I think that would be on the list of one I haven't been to.
Yeah, that would be on the list, definitely.
Where else? I mean, Wembley, yes, fantastic. More recently, I would say the new camp is quite an experience.
Yeah, I've been there.
When it's full.
Yeah, I was there for Barcelona Espanyol.
It's because it's quite kind of old school because so much of it is open in a way.
Yeah,
and yet it's just quite awe-inspiring just because of its pure size.
I mean, I was there in the, let me think, late 90s I went, and I walked up to the gate and bought a ticket for like €8 and a reasonable seat, you know, for a derby game, which I was very impressed with. I tell you, actually, one of the ones which is a bit of a sort of a cheat in a way is Monaco for the Grand Prix.
It is a bit of a cheat because that's a whole principality.
Well,
in a stadium, but yeah, I know what you mean.
It's when the Grand Prix on. I mean, we went for a walk around the city. It's the most unimpressive place. Really, looks quite dull. But when the actual race is there, it's phenomenal to be there for the Grand Prix.
And then I could say it would be cheating enormously to say it, but the Singapore Grand Prix is quite something.
Well, that's a stadium.
Well, it basically is because it's so much of it is around the financial city centre before it heads off round the bay and stuff like that. So you get the noise encased. And actually, I'll tell you what, it's a very interesting way to mix, strangely, cricket and motor racing. I know you're a fan of both, because I've watched the Singapore Grand Prix from the Singapore Cricket Club.
Oh yeah.
So as they come down a straight, then there's a chicane that's right by the Singapore Cricket Club. So when you stand on the balcony of the Singapore Cricket Club, either members or friends of members, if you can wangle your way in, it's an absolutely stunning spot to enjoy the Grand Prix from. And being the Singapore Cricket Club, you know, the catering and the entertainment, the food is just superb. It's a great cricket club.
Farong wants to know: does the Colosseum count?
What, in ancient Rome?
I don't think. I mean, I've been there. It is pretty impressive, but I don't think they have any sport there. They weren't slaughtering any Christians when I was there.
Can you imagine? Gorillas do.
Well, like Caligula.
Gorillas do gladiators. That would be amazing. I'm not sure Spartacus is on form today. We'd
have some good jingles for that.
Yeah, the tweets would be interesting. I'm trying to think of another one that I've been to. There is something I'm missing here. Again, another F1 which is really good is Spa.
Spa-Francorchamps, whatever the full name is. It's a very long circuit, though, isn't it? Isn't it about 3.5, 4 miles? That's quite unusual. Normally they're a couple of miles, but I think Spa is very long.
Well, the Nürburgring, the old Nürburgring.
The old Nürburgring
is the one. I mean, they used to do about 12 laps for a Grand Prix around that.
That's true.
Although they stick the away fans right at the top, I've always enjoyed going to Newcastle for football.
But you need oxygen.
Yeah,
at the top of the away end. It's just crazy.
Well, one of my favourites, talking of football, one of my favourite away trips, and it had to be an evening game, was always Upton Park.
Yeah,
the old Upton Park before they redid it. Incredible atmosphere there.
I've stood in the chicken run before now. I wouldn't describe that as a particularly pleasant experience.
The chicken run is full of shit.
I can see the Bears appeared. So let's ask him. I don't know if he's on audio. So Bear, the question we somehow got sidetracked on. It can be cricket, it can be anything.
Uh-huh.
The most impressive sporting venue, we started with stadiums, but then we rather expanded it out, that you've watched, been to, and where haven't you been that you would really like to go?
Well, I'd like to go to Anfield. Never been to Anfield.
You're a Liverpool fan who's never been to Anfield.
No.
Fuck me, I've been there loads of times.
I've been there.
I prefer watching sport on a
You're a
telly.
Liverpool fan from Watford who's never been to Anfield.
Yes.
Okay.
Bloody, I stood in the old Cop,
Wow.
you know, when it was standing, when it was the proper.
I almost, me and a mate almost organised a day out there. It's really, you realise how hard it is to get tickets to go to fucking Anfield if you're not a Liverpudlian.
Well, you get away tickets, okay.
I was going to say,
I got offered tickets to go to West Ham once, and I couldn't take them.
I'll tell you something that would rather disappoint you. If you compared corporate hospitality at a reasonable rate between Liverpool and West Brom, whose do you think is better?
West Brom's, because
By a country mile. Liverpool's corporate hospitality is terrible, and West Brom's is just amazing.
I went to Camp Nou.
Yeah, we were just saying. I was just citing Camp Nou, which is incredible.
No, I didn't. No, it wasn't Camp Nou. It was. It was.
Bernabeu.
Yeah, Bernabeu. Yeah, I went
Real
to a
Madrid.
box there. That was when I was chatting up Modi, Lalit Modi, and Rafat took me to the Bernabeu, and we were in a box in a corner. It was quite impressive.
I'll tell you the stadium I've been to which disappointed me the most was the Arthur Ashe Stadium at Flushing Meadows.
Ah, yeah.
Unless you're really, really rich and famous and you've got courtside seats, I hated it. It's too big. And it's really, I mean, I thought the Italian Open's fantastic, but I thought that was noisy while they're actually playing during, points, not it was just people were just openly chatting and walking around, and it's just like you go to the All England Club, and you sometimes you don't breathe in the centre court of Wimbledon. Again, the centre court of Wimbledon is incredible. It's like a church in there.
Interesting. No one's mentioned Lords. I guess because
I don't like Lords.
Almost think of it as a second home.
Well, I was about to say that actually. I mean, when I did the World Cup and I went around all the stadiums, I was about to say that one of the best ones to actually watch was, funny enough, Taunton, because you were so close to the ground. One of the best food was at Edgbaston. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I much prefer the Oval to Lords.
The Oval was a good place to commentate from. The commentary boxes there were a really good size. But Edgbaston, the commentary box was fucking terrible. It was a really long, thin room. And you could hardly get anyone at the front. You could literally just get two people at the front. And I had to have all my gear on the side. And I was kind of slammed up against the wall trying to fiddle with the kit to get them on air and stuff. That was really annoying.
Edgbaston, they kind of sort of wedged the commentary boxes underneath where sort of the main press are on the top floor, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then they've sort of wedged all the commentary boxes.
They're all really long and thin.
Yeah.
You can hardly get
I went up to Edgbaston to do an interview when I met with Paul Smith, actually, who has his own corporate room at Edgbaston. So I went and met him. It was out of season. There was no cricket, of course. What I did find was it's a very welcoming, huge. You kind of walk into a big sort of open reception area, and it's slightly intimidating in a way. And yet the people behind the desk were just so super friendly. The scale of the place as a cricket ground is quite impressive, Edgbaston. But the people there were just so nice when I went there. It was a happy memory.
I mentioned it briefly, but every year we used to go to the Italian Open tennis, and the Foro Italico is absolutely fantastic, and it's typically bonkers Italian. It's like you're watching the best players in the world play at a local tennis club, but there is a main stadium there. But when you go to the outside courts, you're literally sitting on benches, and the old number one court has got marble all round it, and you sit on these marble kind of, I don't know, just marble sort of blocks around watching Federer playing, and then Nadal. But they have got a big centre court,
Good for piles.
But it is, the whole thing is just bonkers. There
we
doesn't
should
seem to be
probably-
any rules at all.
Here's a
there.
question for you.
Oh, it's messy.
It just about costs the national debt to get Wembley rebuilt. Is it any good?
No, it's horrible.
I haven't been there.
I should point out that we think we're just rambling away.
We are.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there's an
there
awful lot of people who have jumped onto Twitter to tell us to talk about these, so you might want to catch up on a few of those.
Well, rain stopped playing.
So you can.
Rain has stopped play, and it. To be fair, I mean, we can get through the tweets, but it does look like it's going to be a while before we get back on. I think it might have even stopped raining, but I was just listening to a telly in the other room. It sounds like the groundsmen are expecting more, and they're basically covering up the entire outfield. So I don't think we're going to be on anytime soon.
Not good.
Why don't you take us through those tweets, and we'll decide where to go from there.
Mog says he'd be more than happy to give up the melodic jingles and give you some real shit for the gladiators in the Colosseum. John McNamara says I contest it, as I think one hand, one bounce should be brought into Test cricket.
He's
So I
going
think
back to
was
that
on
weird
the
route
catch
into the.
earlier. Yeah.
Leia says I've been to the Circus Maximus. I've been there as well, and there is sport going on. It's mostly recreational jogging. Yeah, it's just a kind of a long field as far as I could work it out. Any Mia Casey's joined us. The most disappointing stadium, Adelaide. If you're not in the members area, it's useless. Farong says, would St Andrews or Augusta be appropriate for the topic? Well, I'd love to go to Augusta. I've been to St Andrews loads of times.
I assume he's talking about the golf course, not where Birmingham play.
Well, Augusta, I would have thought so.
St Andrews would certainly not be high on the list. I can assure you of that.
St Andrews is a really crap place to watch the Open at. It really is, because you can't go down the middle. You're all round the outside of it. So as far as watching golf goes, it is really shit. And Augusta, although I'd love to go there, I've heard that it's similar in. They limit the numbers, obviously, but you can't get to a lot of it. And Missy Jess said the same could be said of the Wacker to Mia Katie, and she quite liked the Wacker, but not enough shade.
Yeah.
You got to
What's-
show with top.
Do the people of Perth like the new stadium, Messi, compared to the Wacker? What's the view?
As a spectator, I
Yeah.
love the new stadium. It's because the facilities at the Wacker were really tired, and for non-members they were dreadful, particularly in terms of hot days. The new stadium is really cleverly designed in terms of facility and view, and so it's really great to watch at. And when you've got a big crowd of 60,000 watching the football, it's just an amazing atmosphere.
I tell you one I went to, which was really. I went to the old Stadium of Light, Benfica, the original. Not the proper Stadium of Light.
What, you mean
To watch
Sunderland?
Arsenal play Benfica, and
Look out for the tweets from Sunderland.
I was going to say.
yeah, but it was like 80,000 capacity, and it felt so dangerous. It was crumbling. I mean, it was literally falling down. They've rebuilt it now, I think.
Wow.
And it was like you felt. I said to my mates, I said, I don't feel safe here.
But I mean, you go back to the time of Hillsborough, and most of the English football stadiums were in a state of pretty poor disrepair.
Well, we had we had a slew of them, didn't we? We had Hillsborough, and then we had, what was the one there were two that burned down, or one that collapsed, and one that burned.
Bradford was the dreadful
Yeah.
fire.
I mean,
Heysel Stadium, remember, in
Yeah.
Brussels, wasn't it? That or in Brussels.
Hillsborough wasn't the fault of the stadium itself. They put the wrong fans in the wrong end.
It's just
Yeah, they did.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
the seating arrangements didn't help.
no, and the fact that they had cages on the front so people could spill out anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to that Lepping. I stood in the Leppings Lane end, and it always felt really claustrophobic in there. It was awful. You were in cages, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was an awful, dreadful, terrible thing. I can remember very, very well where I was that day. Curiously, I was at another game. I think it was a goalless draw between Swindon and Watford on that day. I remember catching up with the news on that, and it was just utter horror. The only thing you can say is that it forced such a rethink about how stadiums were constructed. It happens in motor racing as well, doesn't it? You have some awful tragedy, and then as a result of which massive improvements occur.
Yeah, it takes.
By and large, stadium experiences have massively changed now for the better, and perhaps in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But in a lot
higher up the divisions. Yeah, I imagine lower down, not so much.
I hate the Emirates. Give me Highbury any day of the week.
I've been to Emirates. Yeah, it's a bit soulless.
It's just a corporate bowl. It's
Yeah,
like
it
a
is
lot
a
of
bit.
these places.
Yeah, I mean they do, pack them in, but I mean it's well spaced, and all that kind of thing. I mean I've got to say, this is the thing. I mean I prefer my sport on a TV. I like replays. I like all the angles, and when I went to Highbury and I watched a game of football, it looks a lot more impressive on telly than it does live, I thought.
That's a really interesting point in terms of where things are going. I mean, for instance, the Big Bash here, I used to go to watch it at the stadium here. But, I mean, apart from the fact that my grandchildren love all the atmosphere, I hated it. I just hate the music between every ball, the doof, doof, doof. There was no sort of cricket. And although they got lots of replay screens there, it's still a much better view sitting in the air conditioning at home with cheap beer in the fridge than it is spending a bloody fortune paying for crap beer at a stadium.
Well, that's it.
And I reckon they face a huge battle in that regard in the long term.
Well, they do. I mean, that's
right.
why the TV revenue is so high, isn't it? I mean, some people are always going to go for the experience. I mean, I took my son to a T20 game. We got some tickets because we're, in a club I play for is Surrey League. So, and a guy, they were handing out kids tickets. So I got a couple of tickets, and we went along. And after doing this for so long, and I think it was after I'd done the World Cup, and at least at the World Cup we were in a commentary box, so we had all the replays and the stats and stuff in there, so it was like doing it here. But actually going there live and being out at Cow Corner or third man essentially trying to watch a game of cricket, I was just fucking frustrated because you couldn't see anything, and you didn't get the replays, and because this game wasn't on the telly. So they had in-house cameras, but they've only got 3 or 4 in the place anyway that just basically play sort of wide shots and stuff like that. And I just found it really frustrating to be at the game live after doing this for so long.
I mean, I hate the problem with cricket is unless you're behind the wicket, I think it's really shit to go. Because I've 90% of the time I've watched matches at Lords, I've been, side on.
Yeah, when someone's bowling at 90 miles an hour, you
can't see it. You can't see it. You just don't. You're not sure what's happening.
I remember the first game I went to.
Out of interest, do we think football and cricket suffered in different ways as a result of no crowd being allowed? Now, I genuinely think football has changed dramatically. It seems slower. It doesn't. There's such a huge part missing.
Well, as someone said,
cricket somehow not quite so much.
Yes,
I know what you mean.
Well, we've discussed this when it first started. I think that is definitely the case because, for example, England go to India and the Test matches, no one's there. You go to UAE, play Pakistan, no one's there. I think cricket. You go to cricket grounds around the world. I mean, some countries are well attended, but there are plenty that aren't. And professional cricket still goes on there. It's really competitive. I think all the players are used to playing in front of empty stadiums. It would have been weird for England players to play in front of an empty stadium last summer at home, but the concept of playing in front of an empty stadium wouldn't have fazed them anything like the football players. And as a friend of mine said the other day, when West Brom equalised against Liverpool in the 79th minute or something, he said to me, I bet you if there had been fans in that stadium, you'd have scored another goal. Because they'd have been egging them on. And I think in football, it's definitely, it's more gladiatorial, they're closer to the pitch, there's more people making more noise. And I definitely think that's effective football, and the results, they're really topsy-turvy,
I tell you a sport I think that really suffers from it, and it's a sport that's often derided from a watching point of view, but I think golf really suffers badly from not having a crowd there. Because I'm watching tournaments on the TV. Someone sinks a 20-foot putt to take the lead in a tournament, and there's utter silence. and it's just weird because the noise is generally, it happens not all the time like in a football match. There's quiet, polite clapping if someone does something, but you get these explosions of cheering, and when you haven't got that in the golf, it just seems really weird. And I know the players have said that they find it really difficult.
Well, I wonder if we'll get to a point, because at the moment we are all, including this event that we've done, I think, brilliantly to bring the coverage that we have in the way that we do it. But there will come, and people are so glad. I mean, look at our audiences for example, the first test against the West Indies this summer, which I can tell you were in the millions. And because people were just so relieved and happy to see the sport. Yeah. But there will come a point at which that kind of novelty almost, the lack of a crowd will diminish the overall impact of the event. If we,
I think it'll take longer. I think it'll take longer to happen.
Hard to keep it interesting, really.
Well, I think it'll take long. No, I don't think that's necessarily the case, because people rely on sport for the one thing that sport has over everything else, and will always have over everything else, is the live nature of it. It's fine watching highlights, but you'd never watch a whole day's play live after the event, or I would never watch a whole game of football after I know the result. The moment is watching it in that live. That's why it's such a premium for TV companies, because it's something where you can guarantee if people want it, they have to watch it at the time, really, and that's what draws the audiences in. And that'll always be the case with live sport.
There's another element to this, which is where guerrilla cricket really fits in. For me, the most satisfying sport that I go to live is when it's actually a social event. That is, I'm going with other people, particularly at the cricket, talking about it with them and keeping an eye on the cricket, but also really enjoying the conversation. And that's what we do, but we do it at home for people, so that they're not stuck in front of the TV by themselves, but can choose if they want to be part of the conversation or just enjoy it from afar.
That's true.
That's a different level.
Yes.
It's funny you say that. Talking about the social side of it, I've got a couple of friends of mine who consistently go to the Open Championship. They'll go to the first tee for an hour, then they'll go to the tented village and sit in front of the big screen, eating and drinking, and that's it. They won't go and see any live golf. And they love it. Because they're with people.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of that in some sports. So, like, if you go,
but when you think about the actual live thing is just over there, and they're not seeing it.
This is the bizarre.
But if you go to a Saturday test at Lord's, remembering what the ticket prices are and how we want to popularise our game and make it more accessible, you will see thousands of people out on the nursery ground. While play is going on, because there's a bouncy castle or a bowling machine and a chance to buy some more chips, and they're not actually watching the cricket, or if they are, they're watching it on a TV. I could sit at home and eat chips and watch a big telly.
Yeah, but you're on your own. Yeah, well, you are.
Yes, but it seems to me it seems to disrespect the event somewhat if that becomes preferential to actually.
Well, I also think with
in the stadium when the game's going on.
Yeah, but it's a minority.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned.
It's a minority. It's not the majority.
And not only that,
it's not the majority, but it's a lot.
It is. But then cricket goes on all day, so you can take 2 hours on a nursery ground, miss a session, and watch the other two.
That's right.
An advantage of cricket.
Cricket and golf are very different to football in that regard, aren't they?
Well, golf starts at like 7 in the morning and finishes at 9:30 at night. The Open Championship literally runs, all the way through.
Yeah.
So if you do want to go and see, but I know people who literally just go to that tented village and just lie. They have these big kind of cushions, if you can get on one, just lie there.
Yeah.
With the screen, and they're just chatting with a load of people and their friends and just getting pissed, and they love it. They say, "Oh no, it's brilliant! You've travelled all the way to Scotland from Essex to do that."
That's if you go to a big if you go to a big horse racing meeting, The busiest time arriving is when the gates open, because there are people rushing to get the spots in front of the TV, and they don't move all day.
Yeah.
Whereas like me, if I go, I like to sort of move around, and you like to actually see a horse would be nice when you go. And say I go to Cheltenham every year, and you see the same people there every year, but they don't move from their position in front of the telly. There's people who've been going for 20 years and not seen a horse.
Yeah, but it's down to the social event, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It is. And Farong makes a good point with this tweet that the World's Darts Championship, how good would it be to watch Jockey Wilson dining the pints and hitting 180 darts with no crowd at all?
It'd be something of a miracle now, because I think poor
And
Jockey's gone to the hockey in the sky.
Yeah, the crowd get something out of being together in that social milieu, don't they? I mean, it's just... That's
the whole
different.
In fairness,
the whole purpose of it, isn't it?
We had the darts behind closed doors this Christmas. It wasn't completely unwatchable. Sky did a good job.
Tell me a sport other than darts where everything is totally fixed. The possible exception is 10-pin bowling, where there is so little variation in the conditions of play.
When you say fixed, do you mean in the sense of not in the gambling sense of fixed?
I don't mean I don't know, but in terms of the actual play, there is a dartboard. You're certain distance from it. There's no wind. There's no humidity. It's just the same shit over and over and over again. Well, snooker, the position of the balls each time changes.
All right. Okay.
I mean,
you already mentioned it, but 10-pin bowling would have to be the number one of that list.
It's the only other one I can really think of.
But the Sky was showing, it was one of the first sports to come back after the sort of lockdown time. They had the Weber Cup 10-pin bowling was on, and it's just oh look, they've got a strike. It's not like when I do it and you might get one down the gutter and you get nothing.
I mean, it's an event when they don't get a strike, isn't it?
But that comes down to some things that have an absolutely enormous amount of skill to perform don't necessarily make great telly. Everyone laughs at, and I know these probably shouldn't, but I don't know, let's take synchronized swimming.
Yeah, everyone laughs
to be
at
able
that.
to do that, phenomenal. The energy, the cardiovascular strength you have to have, the ability to do that, absolutely incredible. Does it make good telly?
No,
absolutely not.
Fittest people in the world, the old synchronised swimming, isn't it? Fittest people in the world.
Well, exactly. So, but I can tell you, I'll bet you, if certainly from a British perspective, during an Olympics, if our team happens to be in with a chance of a medal, all of a sudden everyone's going to be an expert in it. They'll be in the weight trays going, "Oh, what did you?" discussing the silver medal that the synchronized swimming team got.
It's like it's like gymnastics. It's the only sport everybody watches and then turns to whoever they're watching with, going, "Was that any good?"
Yes.
There's always a market for everything, though. I mean, everybody's got their own little, whatever sport it is, there'll be people who go to it, won't there? It's like, crown bowling.
Our minds must be some weird way in tune, Nestor, because my mind had actually gone to crown. Do you remember David Bryant?
Yes, I remember that. He was the one who had the pipe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not, but the same thing. Even when I was younger, I occasionally, if that was on the telly,
I'd watch it.
I would probably, and you do think of bowls as being such a sport for old people, and yet there was something, I can't remember who the commentator used to be. He was sort of like the Peter Alice of Crown Green bowling, and he had that sort of lilting voice that kind of seduced you into watching it. I can imagine there must be a French equivalent for pétanque, which is equally a game, a terribly boring game to watch, but boy, to do it well, you have to be really skillful.
This will make you laugh. So a few years ago, I used to play in a local pétanque league.
Did you
really?
Yeah.
Were you any good?
That was right. I don't know. It was kind of it was a league made up of local pubs.
So it's
Well-
about drinking and talking as much as it is about the sport, isn't it?
It's a social
well,
thing.
that you could lift that
Yeah.
principle and put it onto any sport. I think.
Well, Katie is not happy with this. She
Oh.
points out that that's exactly the problem with Adelaide. Everything is geared to make the view for the members good, ignoring everything else, and yet it's usually empty because the members are out the back schmoozing. It's all very well being social, but you're denying someone else who wants to watch the cricket a seat. Why not sell ground tickets for people who don't actually want to watch? Fair point.
Fair point.
Well, that is my point. That was my point about a Saturday at Lord's. It's not that it's partly feeling that if you've paid £100+ for a ticket and you don't respect the game enough to be in the stadium when it's taking place, not even to be in the stadium, I feel that is wrong. And I just look out there and go, if all you want to do is chat to your mates and drink and watch the telly, I'd rather your ticket was given away to a 12-year-old who might be a keen fan, a cricket fan of tomorrow.
But that's the same for everything, kind of thing. I mean, that's the notion of clubs, isn't it? And membership, that you get to choose. You know, if you're a member of the MCC, you can go there and watch 10 overs and then go and get drunk all day if you want to. You know, it's always been the same. It's like Wimbledon. And when Wimbledon's a massive social event for a lot of people, and they watch one set of Roger Federer and then they go into the members area and drink and socialise and whatever else.
Just seen Lennox Lears talking about chess. That would be an interesting one for us to cover.
God,
It goes on quite a long time though, chess, doesn't it? And there's not a lot to watch apart from two blokes stroking their chins thinking about the next move and
The World Staring Championships.
Wasn't that Alas Smith and Jones? The World
No,
Staring?
no, it was
Or is that a
on-
genuine thing?
No.
I thought it was.
Oh, come on.
It was a cartoon thing, wasn't it? But it had
Oh, yeah.
it had
Beavis and Butthead, was it something like that?
no, I can't
No,
remember
No,
what show it was on.
it was the night something train.
Yeah,
the
Big Train.
Late
Oh,
Big
Big
Train.
Train.
Oh, okay.
I'll put some of it on the WhatsApp group for you later, Tony.
Hasn't it got actual? Hasn't it got like not David Coleman? Who's it got? Has it got Martin Tyler actually doing as one of the commentators?
I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like one of the genuine sort of BBC people who's doing some of the commentary. But
That would be
no,
fine.
I mean, Gary always has a thing about Wimbledon, you know, and the people going there because to be seen and everything. It's always been like that from day one. I think it's very social kind of, and like all sports, because especially nowadays, it is better to watch things on TV because you've got the best view in the house. You've got all the statistics, etc., etc. And you haven't got the pain in the arse of getting there, getting ripped off while you're there. I'll never forget my first match at the Emirates. It was Dennis Bergkamp's testimonial. It was the first game ever played there, I think. And at half time, I've just wandered around just to have a look, you know. And this random guy just shouted out to no one in particular, "It's just a fucking corporate concrete bowl designed to take the money out of your wallet." And
That's quite a chant.
I thought, you're right, mate. You are absolutely right. That's the feeling. He articulated it, you know, perfectly, because that's what it was. Suddenly, you couldn't get a cheap food. You know, everything was £7 and £8, you know, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there, and literally, I just said to my mate I was with, I said, "Do you get free binoculars with this seat?" You know, and because I couldn't, you know, from my season ticket at Highbury to what I was given, it was like an alien thing. I didn't know what I was doing there. You know?
I mean, sometimes you can do. Yeah, I don't fully. I agree that television does an amazing job of conveying sport and giving it levels of depth and understanding that you may not get when you are there. But the chance for television only exists to do that because the sport itself exists. And if you were to project yourself to a world where people only ever watch sport on television, it would be an incredibly sad world indeed, I'm afraid.
Oh yeah, no. If
So
people
you
wanna-
kind of have to be a bit careful.
Yeah, no,
for
but
what
I
you
don't-
wish for on that one.
I actually think it maybe won't happen in our lifetime. Maybe not including Rob in this. However, I can see a time when, and this is almost sort of science fiction-y, where there are no, there's almost like a fake crowd almost, or you know.
You mean like now? Because that is actually what we're seeing.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't mean cardboard cutouts. But you know, or you could project yourself into the stadium or whatever. But I can see a time because the advertisers and the people behind it all. I mean, you know, all professional sport is not as good, in my view, as it used to be, because money has come into it all and changed it. Some of it doesn't make any difference, like cycling to a certain extent has always had money in it, and it hasn't really affected what you're watching apart from the drugs. But a lot of
drugs
sport
can certainly affect what you're watching if you're taking them.
But a lot of sport has changed, and I'd question it for the better. You know, the professionalism that's come into tennis, for instance. Is tennis as entertaining to watch as it was in the late 70s and early 80s, where there was less professionalism, the top players hated each other, there was more theatre about it?
Is there a modern day Vitas Gerulaitis, for example?
McEnroe, Connors, Ball.
McEnroe, Connors, yeah.
You know, McEnroe and Connors shouting, screaming at each other, threatening each other on the centre court of Wimbledon. Can you imagine Nadal and Federer doing that?
Well, I mean, let's
they're
take
best mates.
No, quite right. I mean, let's look at as well motor racing. You talked about motor racing. You know, I go back to Jim Clark, Graham Hill. You know, all those guys. Yeah. Somehow, maybe it's because as a child growing up, that your sporting heroes seem bigger heroes because you're viewing them as a child growing up.
Maybe, yeah.
So you see them through different eyes than, say, I might see Lewis Hamilton now. But the heroes today in some sports just don't seem as big. I don't actually include cricket in that, I must say.
Big in
big. I don't mean big in physical size. No, I mean in terms of aura.
Well, I don't know.
In some sports.
Yeah, in some sports. I was going to say, speak to kids in America about Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. I think they disagree with you.
In some sports. And, you know, I think you can look at Ben Stokes and you could compare him going back a few generations to, well, I might even say Dennis Compton, who was before my time. You know, there is because of their accessibility and in a way they're sort of polished for the media, by and large. I know Ben Stokes steps outside of that a little bit here and there. There's something, I think it's just as you get older, maybe the hero part of it is tarnished a bit, and yet the heroes you grew up with seemed bigger heroes.
Quite possibly. Maybe, I think with money comes pressure, and you have a more of a clean-cut image because there's so much at stake from your own personal wealth and stuff that it sort of, I don't know. I think that the squeaky clean image is the one that the sponsors want, isn't it?
I'm sure they do lots of stuff.
It protects their investment more, yes.
Yeah. So the likes of a James Hunt, would you get a James Hunt
in Formula One today? No, I really don't think you would.
Kimi Räikkönen's the only one who's probably like that.
Well, it's almost
you know more than me. I met James Hunt. My extraordinary story I must have told you, mate.
Hunt the Shunt.
Hunt the Shunt. His brother was his agent, and he was doing a photo shoot for the agency I worked at the time. And we said, just can you turn up wearing, you know, gave him some very broad guidelines of acceptability. He would open sandals, torn jeans, t-shirt that didn't really fit him. We had to send someone out to go and do, you know, buy him a whole new wardrobe for this photo shoot. And then a few days later, I've got him on the phone, and I thought, oh Lord, is there a complaint? It seemed the shoot went all right, it was fine. He wanted a free shed. Now I rather suspect
James Hunt
he wanted a free garden shed. James Hunt. Now I suspect that had that been Lionel Messi, he probably wouldn't have been doing a double glazing ad. But even if he had, I very much doubt Lionel Messi himself wouldn't have been on the phone
asking for
going, you know, I've got a fairly large garden. Can you send me over a free garden shed, mate? I did do that photo shoot for you. It wouldn't happen, would it?
I raced against him once, James Hunt.
Did you? What, running or in a car?
in a go-kart. I did a charity, and this is classic James Hunt. I did a charity go-kart thing at a company I worked for, and on my team was David Gilmour from Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
A runner whose name I can't remember, an Olympian, a silly woman comedian who was just the most irritating person, and in one of the other teams was James Hunt. And guess what? He turned up pissed.
Drunk.
to drive a go-kart.
And he had, and these were sort of 50, 60 mile an hour go-karts. They weren't the silly ones that you get, most people race. And he turned up with the old 1950s leather helmet and big goggles, like. But he was great. He was good fun.
He was a character. Yeah, no, he was box office, and his commentary, by the way, his double act with Murray Walker, was just always comedy gold. They were just they were a marriage made in heaven from a commentary perspective.
I have some important sporting results for you. I can tell you that Nestle Boy has just overtaken Sophie Katie in the name-dropping stakes run over the last decade.
What we probably should do is just tell people why we're having these crazy conversations anyway.
Rain stopped play.
3:20 for 4 in Sri Lanka. Rain has stopped play. The latest news, I have to say, is not encouraging.
I'm surprised I haven't called it yet, to be honest.
What I'm reading says hopes of a resumption fading quickly. Not only has the rain not fully stopped, the light is getting murkier too. The entire ground has been covered, and that isn't always a great sign. So I rather fear we might be anticipating the worse.
Anticipating doomage.
Anticipating doom.
Well, getting on for 5 o'clock there. It's going to be dark there soon.
Well,
it does get dark early.
Just going back to what you've said, Messi, there's no way on earth that I beat Katie. Didn't she have lunch with the Pope?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but she used the same event
the Pope
so many
not
times.
Ollie Pope.
No, she went off to America to have Latin lessons with the Pope's right-hand man, didn't she?
Yeah, he died recently.
That's right.
She tweeted it out.
I mean, if she went into Waitrose, she'd run into Oliver Reed or something. But
And
Well, again,
go
that
out
would take
and
doing
with
now. Poor old Ollie Reed. Didn't they use his sort of head and had to do large parts of Gladiator after he'd actually died on set, which is really sad.
He did die during Gladiator, didn't he?
No, he died during the filming of Gladiator, and then to complete the film,
it's like
they
Carrie
superimposed him. So you see, there's one scene where he's talking at a window, and it is like something out of a Beavis and Butthead cartoon. It looks
floating head.
They used a lot of CGI on that film. They should have had it
CGI.
nailed.
That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah, I was trying to remember the acronym CGI.
Well, they did the same with Carrie Fisher in the last Star Wars film, didn't they?
Oh, did they? I would hope it had been upgraded in terms of quality since poor old Ollie Reed appeared in the latter stages of Gladiator.
In that one, there's a scene where she comes on. It's so obvious. It's like Peter Cushing. They brought Peter Cushing back, didn't they?
They did. Yes, they did. Yeah. Yes, they did. That's right.
I didn't think that Peter Cushing looked so bad, actually.
Yeah, well, he brought himself back so often that
Well, yeah, that's true.
What's the difference?
But they do it quite a lot. I mean, in that what was that Netflix gangster film that everyone raved about? That was
The Irishman.
The Irishman. I mean,
I thought that looked really bad. The bit when he's out in the street having a fight and running, you could tell that wasn't him.
Well, you could. Well, it was him, but
it just looked wrong.
Well, it did because he looked like the movements were that of an 80-year-old man with a young face on it. You know, he was creaking about, and he
wasn't running fast enough. The whole film was 3 times as long as it should have been.
Oh God, it was terribly long, wasn't it? I didn't think it was
really
a great
looking
film.
forward to that film, and I was hugely disappointed by it.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
I see Leo Turner was asking me, how is your example of a quasi-mythical figure in contemporary cricket not his Colinus? Which is probably a fair question. Bear, what shall we do, Bear? Shall we keep chatting until people just give up, want no more, or shall we put on some highlights?
Well, I don't think there's any point in putting on highlights because I swear they're going to call it off at 1:30 because I think that they're going to call it off at the original end of the game, which would be 11:30.
Yeah.
Which is the official end time of the game.
Just as you say that on our screen, covers are moving, but there's an awful lot of them.
Ooh, so they look like they are going to attempt to get some more player. You can see blue sky, I think, amongst the cloud cover
Yeah,
there.
it's quite bright.
Oh, so we may well be in for some more.
But what time can they go on till?
You can have another, I would hope, an extra hour. Are there
Well, I
floodlights
don't
at
know.
Galle?
No, there
I don't think there are
there
there?
certainly aren't
No.
floodlights there. I noticed that yesterday.
It has stopped raining though.
It has stopped raining. There's a lot of water on those covers though, and how they get that off without getting it on any of the outfield, I don't know.
So
Maybe
what
they.
time is it now?
Let me go next door. You should, and have a listen.
Oh well, so we'll just keep rabbiting.
Well,
I can bring you up to date because there's been a rather spectacular collapse in the Bash game.
Was this the strikers?
Yeah, the Adelaide Strikers have succumbed to 68 all out.
68.
Good grief. Hasn't Rashid Khan played his last game though, and he's gone on?
Yeah, he's gone.
Back to play for Afghanistan, hasn't he?
It's gone. Adam Zampa, 3.2 overs, 5 for 17.
Oh my lord! Wow. Who did he roll over in that little spell?
Let's have a look. Well, he got the Renshaw, who top scored with 20, and then Jake Weatherald. And then he got the last three, so Worrell, Briggs, and Liam O'Connor.
That is pathetic.
Is quite incredible.
So the Stars won by 111 runs.
Jesus.
Just going back to what we touched on earlier, maybe Rob may be better placed, although I've seen a fair bit of it. We didn't touch on esports. It's huge in motor racing. A lot of the top teams now have invested millions in these guys who are, basically playing a computer game, and it's live on TV, and it's like you're watching a Grand Prix.
Well,
it's a computer game.
So it's a bit like me standing behind my grandchildren playing on the PlayStation.
Yes.
Watching the thing on TV.
Except these guys are professional.
And people pay to watch it. Yeah, and people pay to watch people play games.
Well, the one that got me, I went to a computer games exhibit in London, and it went through the whole history, but it went through how they create them and everything else. And the last part of it, you're in this massive room, and they're showing you the finals of the World Whatever Championships, and it was live inside the Bird's Nest Stadium in China. And the viewing figures globally ran into the hundreds of millions, but there were like 60,000 people in the stadium watching these teams of kids playing this particular computer game. I had no idea until I went to this thing, and I was just sitting there going, "This is insanity. This is madness." But
we had our own little brush with esports, didn't we? When we partnered with the cricketer in sort of, let's call it lockdown 1, and it was quite fun. But then what the cricketer had done in there, I can't remember. They didn't call it the COVID League. It was something else, like the Lockdown League or something.
Quarantine Cup on it.
Quarantine Cup. Thank you, Rob. Yes, it was the Quarantine Cup. I remember Hendo and I did Leicestershire and I can't remember Kent, but it was players. So I remember Tymal Mills, for example. I think was either Sussex or Essex, but it was all players who were playing on their PS4s.
Right.
Five over games, and we were doing some of the commentaries.
Hendo did it. Good God! I mean, he's been one of the vocal opponents to me about it. When I started describing it to him, he went off on one of his massive rants when I first talked to him about it.
No, it was. You'll find it on YouTube if you go. You'll find the videos there. You'll find me and Hendo, and you'll find. I know the bear. The bear's disappeared again. He's gone to find out what state of play is. I think.
I got to break it to you, Bish. I did actually watch one of those, and it wasn't very good. I mean, you and Hendo were fantastic, but the whole experience wasn't very satisfying.
Yeah, maybe. What I did notice was the audiences started high. I think when Hendo and I got on, it was about in the middle, and then it after that it did sort of rather go downhill. I'm not saying that's anything to do with Hendo and I. I think there was a limit to how many legs the concept itself had, rather than the commentary reached a peak when we were on.
Well, that's right, because it was in Japan when they had the last Rugby World Cup. They did a sort of eSports Rugby World Cup that ran alongside it, and they sort of did the games as they were happening, which got quite important when the Japan, an area of Japan, got hit by a typhoon, and a few of the group matches had to be cancelled, and they were put in as 0-0 draws. And people were suggesting about having the eSports games as the actual results for the cancelled matches. But that was another thing where it started off as a bit of a novelty, and then I think the viewing figures for that, by the time you got to the final, had rather diminished, and the fact that.
Look at.
Could I just drag us back to a cricket question?
Look at the viewing figures on YouTube for channels where people are playing computer games.
I bet they're huge.
And just discussing them and actually how to get through them and stuff. But they run to hundreds of millions, and also the guys playing them are multimillionaires.
Yeah, they are. Let's just go back to cricket. So we do suspect there might be some more play tonight, but it'll be quite limited. So now, if you're England and you've got 15 or 20 minutes under a sweaty pitch, doesn't playing an extra 20 minutes tonight massively favour the bowling team rather than the batting team?
Yeah, I think you'd want to come back tomorrow if you're England now.
Yeah. And that being the case, how do you approach it if you are Joe Root and Josh Butler?
Just survive, I would think.
Yeah, just stay in.
I mean, obviously,
You know what? If I was there, I'd be very tempted to declare 185 runs is probably enough to beat Sri Lanka by an innings anyhow.
Yeah.
Well, that is an interesting. You see that, but then presumably, I wonder. Then, don't you have to then allow 10 minutes on top of that? And so, the very art of declaring would probably invalidate the fact that we'd actually get any play. I mean, if I'm looking at some, if that's the ground that we're seeing at the moment, no, we're not.
I've got news. I've got news from Farong. The full covers were on in Galle, but now the rain has stopped and the ground staff are hard at work. There may be time for a bit more play before stumps, and that will upset the bear.
Well, yeah, that's precisely what I was reading, but it may just be 15 or 20 minutes, and if it's 15 or 20 minutes, that seems to be hugely in favour of the bowling side and very much not in favour of the batting side.
It is what it is, isn't it?
It is what it is. Yeah.
Get out there and hit the ball.
If it was in England and you were coming back after a rain break and it was 6 o'clock, you're coming on for half an hour of a damp evening. You'd certainly be wanting to be bowling rather than batting, but the thing is, they bowled so much spin today anyway. There's no guarantee you can face much pace bowling anyway.
But for those watching, it's great. It's 20 minutes of drama, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly.
You're talking about watching live sport. Isn't this a good thing? Yeah, love it. Half hour, 20 minutes of come on.
Well, can we call up Derek Underwood? I'm sure he'd do very nicely.
I've got another interesting tweet from Farong, who said he calls it one from Silly Mid-Off. Murmurings of a possible 2021 version of Blackadder. Should it be done be done or left alone? Me personally, don't do it. Yeah, leave it. God's sake.
I'm not sure where you go.
The ending was so definitive. It's very hard to see. I can't remember. I saw Rowan Atkinson interviewed, and he was describing the potential scenario of where it might be set. I think he might have mentioned the 60s, but I might have been dreaming.
I think the only revival I've seen that's worked at all has been Red Dwarf.
The thing is with Blackadder, though, it's not a revival in the sense that Blackadder goes through the ages. So why not have one in the 60s? That could be, if it's written well.
Yeah,
it could be quite funny.
I think part of the issue with that would be because for a comedy program, that it was, the ending of it was just so extraordinarily impactful and thought-provoking.
Yeah, but
you kind of think, wow, even though it does go through time.
Yeah,
somehow that felt like such a conclusion.
Yeah, but it would be
each
down
series
to
is self-contained, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be down to the writing.
Yeah,
if you've got really, really good writers, it would work.
Well,
if you've got Ben Elton and Stephen Fry and Rowan Atkinson together,
and what's his name, Curtis? Richard Curtis, isn't it?
Yeah. But you could do a really good version of the 60s. That I could see that working. because it's a rich, sort of period in history to do. That could be very, very funny.
We've got an inspection
At midday.
So that'll presumably be one way or the other.
So that's in 20 minutes. That's not. Oh, do they have the extra half hour in front in Sri Lanka? Though, when is midday there?
It's midday here.
Yes, 20 minutes.
Oh, so in 20
away.
minutes.
Leia says at this stage in the game, England don't care what happens in the 20 minutes tonight.
No, that's true.
Well, I think that's where Messi was going. They're sort of far enough ahead, and it was only half in jest. I think you were talking about declaring this, weren't you?
Well, I mean, there's the strong possibility of some rain over the next 3 days anyhow. So, with a lead like this and the pitch doing weird things, wouldn't it be a good idea to do it? They've got to be confident, even if Sri Lanka do get more than 185, of chasing down whatever they get.
Well, or you do exactly the opposite of what you were saying, which is just defend and see the day out. You take a totally different view. You think, if our objective is to get amongst Sri Lanka early with the ball in the morning, how many runs can we pile on in 20 minutes tonight? And you approach it in a very different way.
Yeah. Well, to put your T20 cap on.
Yeah. Or two caps if you're Joe Root.
And for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that then might be.
By the way,
interesting.
Did you, one of our glorious leaders has fallen asleep.
Endo. No, I saw that.
Yeah, he said.
Yeah. Although he managed to tweet us to tell us that.
I've fallen asleep. How does he do that? How does he manage that?
He's messaging.
He's a technical
misquote
marvel.
Crystal Gale. You've been messaging in your sleep. There we go.
I think on the putting your T20 hat on, Joe Root could throw his hat into the ring for the World T20 here because he's
if he gets to his 200 and beyond by really flinging the bat,
because he's
tonight, he'd go. Hang on, I told you I could do it.
His place in that England T20 team is very much up for debate, and up to the point where he wasn't in it for the South Africa matches and for the home matches in the summer against Pakistan. So he did quite well for Yorkshire in the Blast this year.
His contention is very much that he's not at all bad a T20 player, and actually that is true. I just think if you want to look at power, speed, versatility, and all of those things, there are those better than him at the moment.
Well, this is the thing that no one has done enough to warrant dropping for Root in T20 cricket. You're not going to leave out David Malan at the moment.
No.
The other thing I would suggest is that I think it would be worthwhile England paying him enough to not want him to play T20 cricket so that he can concentrate on being test cap. I mean, England are playing 17 test matches this year, and a whole lot of ODIs where he presumably will be playing. It's and especially given bubble life and all that, I would have thought the chance for him to have a rest when T20s is on, it's got to be good for England apart from good for him.
Yeah, but it's a World Cup. He wants to play in it, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, I suppose.
We've got 2 World Cups, I think, haven't we? Because we've got a rescheduled one in Australia at some point as well.
Yeah, next year. Yeah.
The World Test Championship final.
Well, that would be this year if it comes about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rather been kiboshed, the whole World Test Championship, isn't it? By
it's still going on, though, isn't it?
That's a very interesting one, Rob, because we're commentating on 2 Test matches simultaneously. I mean, I think before you were on this morning, I can't remember. My little commentary stint of the day ended up being Australia and India.
Yeah.
It was great fun. We're now debating whether England should declare or not on what happens in the last 20 minutes. In isolation, we're just watching Test cricket for Test cricket, and the whole discussion about context hasn't stopped us being totally absorbed by Test matches in their own right.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
Do you need a World Championship?
Well,
is that your question?
Well, it kind of is. I think I don't believe it does any harm, but I'm not. I was slightly dubious that the whole it adds context argument really held water. I suppose is what I'm saying.
it's just another finals day for them to make some money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think of a team like New Zealand, who have a really good chance now of making the World Championship finals. For them, if they get to Lord's to play in the World Test Championship final, it's a really big deal. And probably for India too, you know, for the whole of India to say, okay, we're going to Lord's to prove something. Yeah, I think there's a little more to it than just money.
The thing, what's happened with it though is they haven't fiddled with the format to make it happen.
Yeah.
Is what Tony was saying. You know, it hasn't sort of diminished our enjoyment of watching a Test series because they've left it alone.
Yeah.
You've just got some points. I mean, is anyone taking any notice of it at the moment?
I think they are, and I think even the players.
I don't even know who's going to be in the final. Do we know?
So, I can tell you at the moment it's down to 4 teams really. New Zealand, India, and Australia are all in good positions to finish, but England still can if they do really well against India.
Now,
there'll be a lot more to play for by the time that series comes up.
And is the final? How long's the final over? 5 days.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's just a test match at Lord's.
Yep.
It's the final.
Yep.
So it's just 2 teams get to it in the end. Right. Okay. See, I didn't even know the format. I mean,
it's a Lord's final. It's a Lord's Test final.
Yeah.
Hopefully, with vaccines and all things that come with it, you know, by June, that, you know. But you look at the government here is talking about by the end of autumn, when they hope that everyone's kind of received their jab. It throws into doubt that during the summer a Test final would have a full house at Lord's. Now, if you're going to have something as what that should be as iconic as a World Test Series final at Lord's, the home of cricket, you really would want spectators at it, I think.
Yeah.
And that might be hard. So there's sort of that additional wrinkle in its validity, I suppose. I generally have nothing against it, but personally, it doesn't add a lot, is my view.
No, but the good thing is, and it often isn't the case with cricket, is it's not taking anything away from tests.
Yeah. I think Mess makes a good point. Yeah, for New Zealand and India, I think it would be a big deal to be in a big final at Lord's. You know, for England and possibly to a lesser extent Australia, they take playing at Lord's for not for granted, but you know, for England, if they were playing in a World Test Championship final at Lord's, it would feel like another test. Really,
I think, I don't know. I think for all of the Test playing nations, regardless that it's new, I think they'd all want to be there.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, all these guys want trophies and want, you know, that's why they're doing it. Apart from the financial rewards, but I'm sure all of them, if you said to them, "Do you want to play in the World Test final?" they'd all go, "Absolutely."
Yeah, of course you would.
But like I say, the main thing for me about it is they haven't fiddled with Test matches. They haven't turned them into 4-day tests and all this, you know, stuff and dancing girls on the sidelines and whatever else. It's just left alone to do its thing, which says to me something about the product, which is that it's fine, leave it be.
I agree. Now, some little bit of news, by the way. We fear the covers are being rolled back, as in rolled back on, not rolled back off. The rather interesting phrase on Cricinfo, which I'll have to read to you, is "sounds like the covers are being rolled back," which might mean curtains. Which is kind of interesting. Speaking of curtains, of course, if you want to buy a shower curtain,
don't start that.
For God's sake, we had enough of that yesterday.
A couple of tweets. Some people are still saying, for our wibbling, I'm pleased to say, Leah says, "I always thought the world rankings provided enough context for me, not to mention the bilateral trophies, but I don't think a test final is inherently a bad thing." I sort of go along with that. Farrell makes a good point. He said the World Test Championship, okay, do it this time, but it isn't my cup of tea when India and Pakistan don't play each other, and nobody wants to play us in Bangladesh.
That's a good
So,
point.
yeah.
That's a massive loss on the world stage still, isn't it?
Yeah.
And now the
Cricketing
Bears
world
returned
stage.
to his station, and
Yeah.
I suspect has some news. So what have you
Well,
got?
no,
just
I've only
there?
got the news that you've got. Because if you're watching the screen, I've got sucked into West Indies against England 1992.
Yeah.
Yeah,
whilst I was next
watching
door.
that. And very, very, very germane actually to a conversation I was having yesterday. I was talking to Chevy Green, who is the program director for Surrey's ACE program, which is really geared to reigniting and bringing back into the game black African Caribbean cricketers from all aspects of kids level through academy levels up to professional levels, and I had a very interesting conversation with him around how they're doing that. Chairman of that program or patron of that program is Michael Holding. Chairman of the ACE charity is Ebony Rainford Brent. And an hour's conversation with him flew by about the steps that they're taking. And I'll tell you one of the things that was interesting. Daniel Bell Drummond had said how different the problem is if you are with Southeast Asian players. The issue is not interest in the game; it's pulling them through into the professional game from club cricket. Whereas for Black and African Caribbean players, the problem is a totally different one. It's totally reigniting their interest in the game at all, as it's kind of ebbed away over generations. And that
They haven't got any heroes at the moment, have they?
well, that was one of the things we absolutely talked about. Role models and heroes, and the likes of Jofra Archer. So I won't give too much away because hopefully the Bear is editing that conversation ready for us to broadcast in the very near future. But it was a fascinating conversation.
Look at these guys we're watching on the screen at the moment.
Well, exactly.
It's a role. Go through from the the 60s through to the 90s, and it's just a list of the greatest names that have ever played the game in some respects, isn't it? That came from the West Indies. I mean, you need David Brooks on here.
Yeah, well, exactly. When the West Indies are playing, Dave can yap on for his life, can't he?
And does,
yeah.
Is that the guy on now? Is he the last great hero of West Indies cricket?
I hope not.
No, I mean at the moment, is he?
Well, I think Jason Holder doesn't get the,
yeah, but he's not ignited the public imagination has he?
No, well, yeah,
we know he's a great cricketer.
Yeah, well, that's team performance, isn't it? I mean, a team has to do something. You can't. One person cannot make a cricket team, certainly, and they got a couple of decent players, but Mash can go on about this for hours. He's a big supporter of the West Indies, obviously, and it's like us in the 90s. England in the 90s. I mean, I remember going to the pub endlessly with my mates who I used to play cricket with, and we just sit there, taking a piss out of our own side because they were so bad.
That's got to go in the things you expect to hear on guerrilla cricket.
Yeah,
I remember going to the pub endlessly. The only surprise being that he remembers it.
But now you've got Ben Stokes.
Well, exactly. I mean, England have won. I mean, you look at representation of English players in the IPL this year. It was, it's been going up and up and up. There's an awful lot, and England standing in white ball cricket is suddenly they're the team to beat, and so English players are very much in vogue.
What percentage of English households have Sky Television? I presume Sky's still got the broadcasting rights.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. I think it's about 8 million or something. But not all those will have sports, obviously.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, why else do you get Sky? You get it for sports. That's why they pay so much money.
Yeah.
The Sky subscription numbers have always fascinated me because they're never as high as I imagined them to be.
23.9 million customers. Don't know what that is. The answer to that question.
Well, I mean, this was the thing. I mean, I was speaking with Vaughan last year at the World Cup when we were in the hotel in Taunton, and Dan was there, so we went down and had a drink, and he was saying that Sky don't care that no, because you know it was the old argument. It should be on free-to-air telly, but for Sky, it's purely a money model, and all they want is subscribers. And if people have to subscribe, if they only get, you know, a few thousand subscribers at 100 or whatever it is for sports package, 40 quid a month, works out a lot of money for them. So they really don't care that no one watches. They want the money.
Mezzy,
they're in it for the cash.
Can I just point out that the Bear has, of late, gone very much high up on the Katie Dote list with all the stuff he did at the World Cup.
Absolutely, I can send you all the photos.
So you think he might be approaching your level on the name dropping stakes?
I think he's number 2. I think Katie's still number 1 by a long way.
But the beauty of the Bears, the one, so is that he got selfies with loads of people.
He's got proof.
We did we did an interview with an Australian sports website, I think, fairly recently, and I said, "Have you got any good pictures, Bear, of you?" And of course, I get him. There's him with Viv Richards. There's him with Sash in. Will these do? You know?
Oh, right, yeah.
We did. We did use them. Yeah.
I didn't get one. The annoying thing is,
spanned 3 decades.
Yeah,
Sorry?
but they were great. So, but the annoying thing is, I didn't get. I mean, I drove bloody Clive Lloyd around for 10 days, I think, and I didn't get a selfie with Clive Lloyd.
Again.
He still talks about it.
There's no pictures of me spending an afternoon drinking with Jeffrey Barnard and Peter O'Toole.
Well, there you go. Before the era of phones, that's the great thing about the old phone, isn't it?
That wasn't in the French house, was it?
It was. We've got time. I'll tell you the story. It's not long. My nephew was in a hospital in London. When he was young, he had a very serious. He has curved spine. And I was going up to hospital. My sister was there. She stayed there, and I went up there one day. And she said, "Oh, you should go downstairs to the lift lobby and meet Jeffrey." And I went, "Who's Jeffrey?" She said, "He's that writer guy. He's in here. He's got a problem with his leg." So I went down there, and they're sitting in a wheelchair outside the lift because they let him smoke. And though he had a glass of orange juice, but it was vodka and orange, they wouldn't allow him alcohol, but he snuck it in. And I went down there and met him. I'm sitting there with him, and he's having a cigarette. And he knew my sister through meeting her, and he was just like, you know, really kind of grumpy, like, well, how's the boy, and all this. And then I'm sitting there another time. I went down and saw him. And he was moaning. He said, "Oh, bloody O'Toole's late." And I'm like, "O'Toole's late? What's he talking about?" And suddenly, crashing through the doors in this literally like this Sherlock Holmes kind of cape outfit was Peter O'Toole. And I'm sitting there just frozen, you know. And Peter O'Toole came in because he smuggled in a bottle of vodka. For Jeffrey Barnard to put in his orange juice.
Didn't Peter O'Toole then go on to play Jeffrey Barnard in Jeffrey Barnard is Unwell?
Yes,
well, I thought he did.
He got the thing with Peter O'Toole was he was chatting away to me and obviously Jeffrey, because they were big drinking buddies, and Jeffrey told him about my nephew. I wasn't there, but my sister said there was a big commotion going on. O'Toole's burst his way through into the children's thing with some lackeys with him, armfuls of presents for all the kids on the children's wards.
Oh wow, fantastic!
Yeah, so but yeah, it was quite a weird afternoon just sitting there. I just sort of pinch myself.
That is an extraordinary story, but I'm afraid, rather expected to be telling you has transpired is that not mid-anecdote, I think you were there.
I'd finished it.
You had finished, thank goodness. They have, not surprisingly, called Stumps for the Day. We're looking at the aerial view, presumably from a drone, and it shows the covers all over the ground there at Galle. So with England on 324.
Oh, how many runs today then? So there's 4 people entered the GPL.
Oh, GPL, that's a good point.
What did we come out at?
GPL?
What did we start the day at?
They were 8 behind, I think.
Yeah, they were. So it's about
127.
Off of 320 is
193.
Oh yeah, too low. 193. The
193.
lowest was 207.
I would have had that.
You wouldn't have gone that. Fuck you. You wouldn't have gone that
England were
low.
127 for 2 overnight.
Yeah, so 190. What did we say? 193.
Yeah.
No, the lowest score was 207.
It's a bit harsh because whoever did those guesses might have been anticipating a full day's play.
Well, they might not have been.
Ropes, I
Yeah,
suppose.
it might have been sharp as well. They might have looked at the weather report and think there's not going to be that much play because they weren't that far off. They were only 14 runs off. So there's no winner. So tomorrow's pot is 85 quid.
Excellent.
So all those people who are interested in the GPL can do that. Well, I guess we say goodbye. We've been talking wibbling nonsense for best part of an hour and
Quality
10 minutes or
wibbling.
so. It was quality
Excellent
wibbling.
wibbling.
It was, absolutely. Well, I don't think I'm on again this test match unless something comes up and you need a filler, so I'll catch up with you in the subsequent test.
Well, I'm here every day.
Likewise, I'll be back on for the second test, I think.
I'm back on Sunday.
I think we'll probably go to Sunday now, won't we? Unless something spectacular happens tomorrow.
I get a lie-in tomorrow. Whee!
I don't get any lines this entire test. Knackle's not about, so I'm here every day. Which is a bit. I'm a bit trepidous about.
We appreciate it, Bear.
I know, but I'm hoping
We do.
4 days will be fine. 5 might break me. Who knows? Right.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you,
See you,
Messrs.
missus.
I'm playing out the theme tune, and we're out of here now.
We
you
are
later.
indeed. See you in
soon.
the morning, guys.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye.
Guerrilla crickets. Whoa. Guerrilla crickets. Whoa. Guerrilla. Take guard, man the barricades, patrol the cover boundary. At last the time is